Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi taala wabarakatuh, and good evening to Madam Dik Dayanku Ros Haziana binti Awang Hassan. Our group colleague is Dulcia, Rosemary, and Yi Yin Chun. My name is Muhammad Khair Anam Jamil. Present in my part. Okay, madam. My part is introduction of inflation in public sector inflation. Economics is a social science concerned with the production, distribution, and consumption of goods and services. It studies how individuals, business, government, and nation make choice about how to allocate resources. Economics focus on the action of human beings based on assumption that humans act with rational behavior, seeking the most optimal level of benefits or utility. The building blocks of economics are the studies of labor and trade, since there are many possible applications of human labor and many different ways to accrue resources. It is the task of economics to determine which methods yield the best result. Inflation in our now is the rate at which the value of a currency is falling, and consequently the general level of prices for goods and service is rising. Two objectives after we discussion is one, to determine how the inflation happened in the country, and secondly, to learn how to overcome the inflation problem. Okay, let's look inflation in the Malaysia. As we know, inflation to rise this year. It could moderate should crude oil prices continue to fall. Okay, the several newspaper, and Kuala Lumpur, June 25, the consumer price index rose by 4.4% year on year to 123.1 in May 2021. Okay, look, inflation happened because of main causes, that is the demand pull and cost push. Both are responsible for a general rise in prices in economy, but they work differently. Demand pull condition occur when demand from consumer pulls price up. Cost push occur when supply costs for price higher. And demand pull inflation is the most common cause of rising price. It occurs when consumer demand for goods and service increase so much that it outstrips supply. Producers can't make enough to meet demand. They may not have time to build the manufacturing need to boost supply. They may not have enough skilled workers to make it or the raw materials might be scarce. If sellers don't raise the price, they will sell out. They soon realize they now have the luxury of hiking of up prices. If enough do this, they create inflation. There are several circumstances that create demand pull inflation. For example, a growing economy affects inflation because when people get better job and become more confident. Okay, again, a growing economy affects inflation because when people get better jobs and become more confident, they spend more as prices. People start to expect inflation. That expectation motivate consumer to spend more now to avoid future price increases. That further boost growth. For, for this reason, a little inflation is good. More central bank recognize this. They set an inflation target to manage the public expectation of inflation. Inflation is Malaysian. We now in during 1997 to until 1998. The Asian financial crisis was a period of financial crisis that gripped much of East Asia and Southeast Asia beginning in July 1997 and raises fear of worldwide economic meltdown due to financial contagion. Okay, madam, my my friends can continue that presenting. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Rosemary. Thanks to our lecturer of ECO120, Madam Dick Rosalziana, who gave us this opportunity to be part of presenting our group assignment. To not wasting so much time, me and my group member has been together in research and studying for our topic assignment, that namely public policy and inflation in Malaysia. So now, I will present my part. My part is talking about the cause of inflation. And as we know that the cause of inflation are various and complicated, and there are two basic types of inflation, which is demand-pull inflation and cost-pull inflation. A rise in aggregated demand for specific goods and services causes demand-pull inflation. As a result of the expanding popularity, Apple, for example, can demand increasingly greater trade for its phone. A expanding economy, more government expanding, or international economic growth can all cause demand-pull inflation. Meanwhile, cost-push inflation is occur when the aggregated supply of specific goods and services decreases, usually as a result of rising production costs, raw material costs, or labor costs. As you all can see from the chart is demand-pull inflation. The cause of demand-pull inflation is a large depreciation of the exchange rate, a reduction in direct or indirect taxation, rapid growth of the money supply as a consequence of increasing bank and building society borrowing, and lastly, rising consumer confidence and an increase in the rate of growth of house price. Cost push inflation. The cause of cost push inflation is external shock, for example, commodity price fluctuation, a depreciation in the exchange rate, higher import costs, acceleration in wage unit labor costs in the labor market. Rise in actual inflation can lead to an increase in inflationary expectation. And lastly, firms raise price to protect their profit margin, better able to do this when demand is price inelastic. As the volume of saving decrease, money loss is worth or real purchasing power and people lose faith in it. Employee in weak bargaining position lose out and their real living standard and relative income levels plummet.
Hi, I wish everyone having a good day. I'm Dalcia Dewi. Today I will present to you all about the impact of inflation through people. In economy, inflation is a general rise in the price of level of one economy over a period of time. When the general price level rises, each unit of currency buy fewer goods and services. Inflation reflects a reduction in the purchasing power per unit of money, a loss of real value in the medium of exchange and unit of account within the economy. The opposite of inflation is deflation, a sustained decrease in the general price level of goods and services. The common measure inflation is the inflation rate. The analyzed percentage change in general price index, usually the consumer price index over time. Economists believe that very high rates of inflation and hyperinflation are harmful and are caused by excessive growth of the money supply. Views on which factor determine low to moderate rates of inflation are more varied. Low or moderate inflation may be attributed to fluctuation in real demands for goods and services or change in available supply, such as during scarcities. However, the consensus view is that long sustained period of inflation is caused by money supply growing faster than the rate of economic growth. Inflation affects economies in various positive and negative ways. The negative effect of inflation included an increase in the opportunity cost of holding money, uncertainty over future inflation, which may discourage investment and saving. And if inflation were rapid enough, shortage of goods as consumer begin hoarding out of concern that prices will increase in the future. Positive effects include in reducing unemployment due to the nominal wage rigidity, allowing the central bank greater freedom in carrying out monetary policy, encourage loan and investment instead of money hoarding, and avoiding the inflation associated with deflation. Inflation had significant negative impact on the population. There are a lot of folks that are getting laid off. The COVID-19 pandemic has mostly affected the entertainment business, but it also had impact on culture and entertainment, information media, society and rights, and politicals. The COVID-19 recession is a global economic downturn that began as a result of COVID-19 pandemic and continues to this day. This is the world's worst economic downturn since the Great Depression. The COVID-19 lockdowns and other precautions implemented during the COVID-19 pandemic plunged the world economy into crisis, following a global economic slowdown in 2019 that show financially market and consumer activity remains stagnant. Every advanced economy was in recession or depression within 7 months. And all emerging economies were recession. According to the World Bank projection, full recovery will not occur until 2025 or later in some places. In several countries, unemployment has risen at extremely high rate during the recession. Overwhelming state-funded unemployment insurance computer system and process, in April 2020, the United Nations anticipated the worldwide unemployment will remain at 6.7% of working hours in the second quarter of 2020, resulting the loss of 195 million full-time workers. Unemployment is predicted to reach approximately 10% in some countries, especially in Malaysia, with higher unemployment rates expected in areas more badly affected by COVID-19 epidemic. A reduction in remittance also hit developing countries, aggravating famines in linked the COVID-19 epidemic, as we can see in the Malaysian situation. The crisis began at the same time as the stock market crash of 2020, which saw major indices drop by 20 to 30% in late February and early March. Early April 2020 marked the start of the recovery, and by late 2020, many market indices had recovered or even established new highs. In compared the previous decade, the recession and the 2020 Russia-Saudi Arab oil price war resulted in the decline in oil price. The collapse of tourism, hospitality, and the energy industry, and a drop in consumer activity. The tourism business has been hit by the COVID-19 pandemic, which has resulted in travel restriction and a drop in demand from tourists. The tourism industry has been severely harmed by the spread of the coronavirus, which has resulted in several countries imposing travel restrictions in attempt to stem the virus spread. According to the United Nations World Tourism Organization, foreign visitor arrival could drop by 58% to 70% in 2020, resulting the loss of US 0.9 trillion to 1.2 trillion in international tourism receipts. The COVID-19 pandemic has wreaked havoc on educational systems around the world, forcing school, early childhood education and care center, university, institution to close their door. In attempt to stem the spread of COVID-19, most governments opted to close education institutions temporarily until right now. As we can see, all the school and university educated for the usage of distance learning program as well as open educational tools and platform like Google Classroom for the school and teacher can utilize to reach out to student remotely and minimize interruption for study. The COVID-19 pandemic has had significant impact on the television industry, mirroring its effect across all art sectors in many countries, especially in Malaysia, Hollywood, and Bollywood. Production of television program has been halted or delayed, resulting in negative revenue impact from right and advertising sales, as well as job losses. Such adjustment and safeguards have been implemented to respond to mandates for social distance and stay-at-home order, as well as agreement by production firm and broadcaster to ensure the safety of all those participating in the production. According to the Empire analysis, the epidemic has pushed back at least 60% of script television content around the world. There had been rises in non-script production, including smaller size series that could be created remotely and utilized to fill schedule until script program resume production. Today, most economies favor a low and straight rate of inflation. Low inflation reduces the severity of economic recession by enabling the labor market to adjust more quickly in downturn and reduce the risk that illiquidity trap prevent monetary policy from stabilizing the economy. The task of keeping the rate of inflation low and stable is usually given to monetary authority. Generally, these monetary authority are the central bank that control monetary policy through the setting of interest rates, through open market operation, and through the setting of banking reserve requirement. And that's all from me. Thank you.
Hi, I am Yi. Here I will share about how to control or overcome inflation. And there are two ways to overcome this problem, which is monetary policy and fiscal policy. Monetary policy measures to address inflation are to reduce the money supply and raise interest rate in the market. And three of them are raise the statutory reserve ratio, raise bank rate or discount rate, and selling government guarantees. Okay, for the first one, raise the statutory reserve ratio. During inflation, the central bank will increase the ratio of statutory reserve to commercial bank deposit at the central bank. And this has reduced the ability of commercial bank to lend. And the purchasing power of the community will decrease, and the aggregate demand of the community will also decrease, and thus inflation can be overcome. Okay, next is stress bank rate or discount rate. Okay, during inflation, the central bank will raise bank on loan extended to commercial bank. When the central bank raises bank rate, this will cause commercial bank to raise interest rate on public loan. And high interest rate because the cost of borrowing to increase and borrowing to decrease. Household spending also decrease, and this also will overcome or control the inflation. And the last one is selling government guarantees, which is the central bank will sell government guarantees to commercial bank and the public, and this will cause the money supply to decrease in the society. The purchasing power of the community will decrease, and the aggregate demand of the community will also decrease, and thus inflation can be overcome. Okay, next one is about fiscal policy. Fiscal policy is government measure to change government spending and taxation structures to influence the level of aggregate spending in the economy. And fiscal policy aim to achieve full employment and control inflation. Okay, during the problem of deflation or economy recession, the government will implement an expansionary fiscal policy, which is to increase government spending and reduce tax rate to increase aggregate spending to address the problem of unemployment. And during inflation problem, the government will implement a contractionary fiscal policy, which is to increase tax rate and reduce government spending to reduce aggregate spending to tackle inflation. And that's all from me. Thank you.